Hi everyone, my name is Prateek and I'll be taking up the News Today discussion for 28 August. So here are the headlines. First, Chief of Defense Staff releases 3 joint doctrines for armed forces. Second, WHO and UNICEF report on WASH. Third, annual survey of industries result for 2023-2024 released. Fourth, BioE3 Policy completed 1 year. And fifth news is Cabinet approves restructuring and extension of PM SVANidhi Scheme. Then we have certain quick updates as well. So starting with the very first news, which is Chief of Defense Staff releases 3 joint doctrines for armed forces. And this topic particularly pertains to paper 3 of internal security. And before we move into this detail, we need to understand how the defense transformation is happening in terms of India and what exactly are the major drivers of these transformations. So the first transformation is with the respect to clarity of purpose. So this is one of the most essential aspects with respect to the transformation of the defense sector. Second one is in terms of the indigenization or the fact that we are producing, designing the defense equipments in India. That is one of the major transformation. The third transformation pertains to the self-reliance part. So even though 2 and 3 appears to be very similar, but these 3 are the major changes or drivers or the elements of changes as far as Indian defense sector is concerned. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff has provided certain doctrines for the armed forces. Essentially, it provides more clarity. So doctrines essentially are the principles that any organization uses for its operations. And here exactly what has happened, that we have the armed forces, it provides various clarity in terms of the operations. So here there are 3 major areas of clarity or the doctrines which the Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, has provided. So in terms of, first is in terms of special forces. Second is in terms of the airborne operations or helicopter-borne operation, and third is in terms of the multi-domain exercises. So in terms of 3 areas, the Chief of Defense Staff has provided the doctrines, right? All the principles of operations. Now, what are the reasons or the importance of this? So if you look at the reasons, so it has several benefits of joint operations. So all these 3 doctrines essentially, we'll talk about what the doctrines are, but these 3 doctrines essentially talk about 4 things or 4 major aspects. First is in terms of joint operational capabilities. So this will ensure that the Army, Navy, and Air Force are able to work in coordination and effectively use their resources. Second, it allows for better synergy in terms of better collaboration, including and ensuring maximizing operational efficiency. And third, it also allows for strategic flexibility in terms of they can maneuver and they can change their response depending on the nature of the threat. And fourthly, it will also allow for better technological capability in terms of better military technology for advanced defense strategies. So basically, these are the importance or the significance of the joint operations. Now, as we discussed earlier, there are 3 major doctrines which have been proposed or which have been suggested by the Chief of Defense Staff. First is in terms of joint doctrine for special force operations. Second one is for airborne and heliborne operations. And third is on multi-domain operation. We'll talk about and we'll discuss each and every one of them separately. So when it comes to the joint doctrine of special forces, first, we need to understand what exactly are special forces. So special forces can be considered as elite forces for some specific task. See, many times it may happen that the regular army cannot be deployed because it would take a lot of time and there would be a lot of inertia and resistance. So for very specific operations, generally, all across the major countries, they have special forces. For example, United States used Navy SEAL for hunting the terrorist that was suspected in the 9/11 attacks, right? In India also, in the surgical strikes that we took help of the special forces. So this operation essentially, or this doctrine essentially talks about building common understanding, language, and procedures among all the three major services. So the thing is that here, all the elite forces will not be just from one particular service. It will be a combination of multiple services. Therefore, and each services has different way of working. They will have their different procedures. They will also have different terminologies for different operations. Therefore, the need is to have a common understanding in terms of knowing what is the specific language for a specific role and procedure, how to go about accomplishing things. And this is for para special forces, which is for army, Marcos, which is the maritime commandos, which is referred to as in the Navy, and for IAF or the Indian Air Force, they are referred to as Garuds. What is the scope of this? First is it is essentially will help in joint training. So joint training will help that there is no duplication of effort. There is commonality of resources utilized, so that will reduce duplication effort. Second, it will align the future weapons profile so that the elite forces will be able to understand and appreciate the various new weapon profiles that are being developed and deployed. Thirdly, it will lead to integrated command and control across land, sea, and air. The second doctrine is with respect to airborne and heliborne operations. Now, what are airborne and heliborne operations? So you may have seen a lot of movies where there are forces which drop from the Air Force or from the helicopters through a very narrow place or in any enemy territory. So these operations essentially are within the domain of airborne and heliborne operations. Now, this is deployed when the target is very narrow and it is very difficult to deploy the regular army, just like in the special forces. So here, what exactly is the principles that is to be required or to be done is that first is there has to be a seamless coordination between Army, Navy, and Air Force. Secondly, it is supposed to or expected to bridge the gaps in terms of planning and execution procedures. So again, procedures and the principles have to be aligned. Thirdly, it will also lead to modernization in terms of integration of advanced air mobility and unmanned systems, including the UAVs. Next, the third joint operation is with respect to multi-domain operations. Now, this is a characteristics of modern warfare. So if you look at the warfare of the earlier times, so when it comes to the 1962 Indo-China War, that was primarily fought on land. When it comes to the 1965 Indo-Pakistan War, it was fought on land plus air. The 1971 war, on the other hand, was fought across land, air, and sea, right? And similarly, if you look at the recent Russia-Ukraine war, it again fought across various the land, air, and sea. So the point is that all these areas are being used. Apart from that, not just land, air, and sea are used, but also we have information warfare. Information warfare to destabilize the important infrastructure related to ICT, etc. They are also being targeted in any warfare. So the point is that we also need to use our resources to ensure that these essence of space and other areas are also utilized. So here the domains are land, sea, air, cyber, space, and cognitive, which means that in terms of information war, right? Then what is the approach? The approach is that we will be not just be using the military persons, but it is going to be a whole of nation approach. which means that it will be combining military and non-military capabilities, including the social media profiles, including intelligence from various sectors, right? And third, the goal is to achieve political military objectives through unified national effort. So this is all about the joint doctrine of multi-domain operations. So if you look at the previous year question, which can be tracked or which can be traced from this topic, the question was on use of unmanned aerial vehicles by our adversaries across the borders to ferry arms, ammunition, drugs is a serious threat to the internal security. Comment on the measures taken to tackle this threat. So of course you can talk about the defense modernization initiatives, you can talk about other aspects. Apart from that, you can also refer to these doctrines as well. Then analyze the multidimensional challenges posed by external state and non-state actors to the internal security of India. Also discuss measures required to tackle, to be taken to combat the threats. Again, we can mention all these initiatives under this. Fine. Next news is on annual survey of industries, which has provided report on 2023-2024 survey. This, of course, is from GS paper 3, not GS paper 2, GS paper 3, Indian economy. So within Indian economy, we have to study about various sectors of economy, including the service sector, agriculture sector, and manufacturing sector. So this industry essentially is basically part of the manufacturing sector, even though it has certain interlinkages with agriculture as well, and services as well. Apart from that, it is also useful for inclusive growth and development and balanced regional growth. So if you look at the overview, why exactly this report is important for us? It is important because we need to have certain data in terms of how the economy is progressing, in terms of the output that is being produced, in terms of the changes of various sectors where the development is happening, right? And what is the capital formation happening, what is the employment, which states are generating more employment, where there is more production of capital goods, etc. So without the information about all these details, the policy that would be produced or will be used will always be incomplete in nature. So in the absence of these details, it is very difficult to formulate a complete and holistic policy. So these data and these information serve as a useful tool for further fine-tuning our policy with respect to manufacturing. And when it comes to manufacturing as such, we know how important it is for us to transition from the agriculture sector to the manufacturing sector, because manufacturing can absorb a lot of labor, right? And it can also provide for better wages as well. So for this, we need to understand this data really well. So first, what is the purpose of the ASI review or ASI report? First, it is to track changes in output. So how much output is produced? What is the value added in terms of GVA, gross value added, employment created, capital formation of manufacturing industries. Now, if you look at the legal basis, and it is conducted by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and it is conducted annually under the Collection of Statistics Amendment Act 2017. So there is a legal basis for this. So every year it is mandatory to conduct this survey. What is the coverage within this research or report? Factories under the Factories Act of 1948. Second, BD and cigar units under BD and Cigar Workers Conditions for Employment Act 1966. And thirdly, electricity undertakings which are not registered with the CAA or Central Electricity Authority. So if you look at the exclusions, defense units, oil depots, railway workshops, gas storage are outside the purview of the survey. So this essentially could be part of your prelims exam, that which sectors are part of the survey and which sectors are not part of the survey of the industries, right? Then the second important aspect is with respect to the key highlights and the trend that we can identify from the annual survey of industries. So the top industries in the form of GVA or the gross value added. I hope all of you understand the meaning of gross value added. So basically, gross value added talks about the value creation. So from the total production, if you subtract the input cost, you get what is called as gross value added. It also is basically done at the sectoral level. So at the various industries level, it can be done, or it can be done at the farm level or agricultural level, or at the sectoral or at the service sector level. So basically it is done at the sectoral level, and when it is added together, you get what is called GDP. So GDP and GVA has a relation. So GDP essentially is GVA plus taxes minus subsidies. So this is the formula. Essentially, if you look at the formula, what exactly it says, that the gross domestic product, which basically is the value of all goods and services produced within a territory or national territory within a specific year, that is your money value of goods and services. And here GVA essentially is sectoral. And also, if you look at it, it does not include tax or subsidies. So what we basically are doing is we are calculating the value additions at the factory level, or we are calculating it at the supplier side or supply side. Fine. So this is the concept of gross value added. I hope this is clear to all of you. Then what exactly are the top industries as per GVA? First is your basic metals. Second is motor vehicles. Third is chemicals. Fourth, food products. And fifth is pharmaceuticals. If you look at the top 5 states in terms of the employment, first is you have Tamil Nadu, second Gujarat, third Maharashtra, fourth UP, and fifth Karnataka. So of course, a question can be in terms of the states which can be considered as the most friendly in terms of employment from the perspective of industries. You can use this data. Then what is the trends that we are observing? So first, a very healthy trend is that the gross value added is increasing by almost 12% or 11.9% year on year. So as we know that this is an annual survey, so the reference point would be a year before that. So this is the growth that we are now seeing. The second thing is in terms of industrial output. So output has also increased by almost 6% or 5.8%. Again, this is year on year. So year before it has increased by 5.8%. And if you look at the average emoluments per person or the compensation that a person is getting, that is also increased year on year by 5.6%. So again, this is a good thing, that these are the trends that we can highlight from here. And you can use this as part of your notes for manufacturing or industrial development. So some of the key concepts I'll reiterate. GVA, what is GVA? Additional value created by the process of production, calculated by deduction of total input from the output. So you have produced something and you reduce the output, that gives you the value addition that is produced. So that is GVA. Second, net value added. If you reduce the depreciation from the GVA, it becomes net value addition. Then you have fixed capital, which essentially means that allocation of capital into long-term assets. So all the long-term assets like buildings, machines, lands are called fixed asset. In contrast, we have another concept, which is the working capital investment, which essentially the day-to-day operations of the business, whatever is required, that we call as working capital, such as electricity bill, such as other aspects. If you look at the questions which have come from this topic, we can see that industrial growth rate has lagged behind the overall growth rate of GDP in the post-reform period. Give reasons. How far the recent changes in industrial policy are capable of increasing the industrial growth rate. So if you look at the question, it is highly analytical in nature. It tries to ask you, or it wants to know from you, that what are the reasons why the industrial growth rate has has lagged. So you have to talk about the reasons why it is declining. So you'll talk about all those aspects, and then you talk about the specific policy in terms of changes in industrial policy and how it has led to increasing the industrial growth rate. Okay, so you can use some of the data provided as per the ASI report. Next topic is about water and sanitation report published by WHO and UNICEF on the progress on the household level water and sanitation. So this can be part of GS paper 2 social justice. In social justice, we have health as one of the topics of social justice along with education and skill development. So health has a very direct impact when it comes to water and sanitation. Then we have inequalities and the concept of inclusive growth in paper 3 that also can be considered to be related to this particular news. So if you look at what exactly this report says in terms of the findings of the report, is that the information on or the trend on the open defecation is 4 times higher in low income countries versus the global average. So what it indicates is that there is a huge correlation between the income of a country and the open defecation. So higher the income of a country, the lower observation of open defecation. So this is a correlation. Secondly, sanitation access, 58% have access to safe sanitation. Third, when it comes to the drinking water, it is safely managed coverage increased from 68% to 74%. So basically close to 6% or 7% rise in terms of drinking water access. Also, it highlights that women spend more time fetching water, so there is a gender component associated as well. And when it comes to the menstrual health, data from 70 countries show gaps across all income groups, which means that higher the income side, better the menstrual health practices adopted. So these are some of the global findings. Now we'll look into some of the India-specific findings. When it comes to open defecation, there has been a sharp decline, and the gaps persist in some certain rural and marginalized area. When it comes to sanitation, near universal coverage, but slippage in use and waste management quality. Third, when it comes to drinking water, there has been increased tap connection. Basically, we had this policy of Jal Jeevan Mission, which has dramatically increased the number of household water supply through tap water connection. And this could be one of the reasons why the drinking water has expanded. Yet, there's a problem, or there's a caveat as well, that safely managed water is below universal level. So there is a lot of issues with respect to the quality of the water that we need to take into account. When it comes to equity also, or how the fruits of the development is distributed, there is again a problem. Why? Because tribal and the poorest groups, they lag behind in access as well. So there are two issues here. One is in terms of access. To a large extent, India has done really well when it comes to access of drinking water. But when it comes to the quality, there is concern. And apart from the access, which is good when it comes to the affluent communities, but access is also denied or poor when it comes to tribal and poorest groups. So these are the major observations from India. If you look at some of the initiatives that are taken for WASH, which is water and sanitation, and all of you would be aware that this directly hits Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6. Okay. So we have two major initiatives that directly targets this. We have Swachh Bharat Mission, which essentially or to a large extent has eliminated open defecation. And not only that, it has also empowered women. It has ensured safety. It has also reduced child and maternal mortality. Right? So these are the multiplier effects of building toilets and ensuring that this mission is successful. When it comes to Jal Jeevan Mission, it provides safe and adequate drinking water through individual household tap connections to all households in rural India. So apart from access, it also talks about quality as well. So access plus quality plus individual household tap water. Fine. If you look at a question from this, UPSC has directly asked a question on WASH. So this topic remains very important. To ensure effective implementation of policies addressing water, sanitation, and hygiene needs, the identification of beneficiaries segments is to be synchronized with the anticipated outcomes. Examine the statement in the context of WASH scheme. Now here, the question is not just about access, it is also about equity, it is also about exclusion. So we must understand that there are certain segments of the society which continues to be marginalized and they're excluded from various schemes of the government. So we must take them into account before we further fine-tune these policies. So this was the basic demand of this question. Next, let's take a look at the next news, which is BioE3 Policy completed 1 year. What is BioE3? BioE3 is biotechnology for economy, environment, and employment. And of course, this is part of GS paper Science and Technology because biotechnology is directly mentioned as part of your Science and Technology, and along with other aspects such as nanotechnology, space, IT, etc. So here we need to understand what exactly is this policy all about, what is the significance of this policy, and we'll talk about some of the major initiatives undertaken to advance the objectives of this policy. So first of all, a major declaration was held because this policy completed 1 year, and this led to the setup of National Biofoundry Network. So you may be aware of the concept of foundry. Foundry essentially is a technical term or is a fancy term for factory where iron is molded or iron is redesigned into various shapes, right? So basically here a component or various manufacturing activities take place. That is your foundry. Now biofoundry basically means that biological systems or living systems are basically manipulated for various developmental and industrial purposes, right? So this essentially was launched by the Union Minister of Science and Technology on the completion of 1 year of BioE3 policy. Second, it will consist of network of 6 institutions and they will have certain objectives. First, it will scale up proof of concept, which means that those abstract concepts which are showing promises, they will be providing additional support and they will be helped in terms of commercial products, in the line which is very much similar to the concept of PLI or production linked incentives. So incentivizing those sectors which are showing some promises. Secondly, it is going to boost indigenous biomanufacturing. Third, it is going to generate employment opportunities. If you look at the significance, it is essentially to position or promote biotech as a key driver of India's economy, just like the IT sector or the space sector is now being used as key driver of India's economy and reputation. If you look at the policy per se, what exactly is the BioE3 policy? It seeks to boost or accelerate bio-based technologies and commercialization via bio-enablers. What exactly it means is that bio-AI, there will be focus on creation of bio-AI hubs, bio-foundries that we discussed earlier, bio-manufacturing hubs. So basically because of providing commercial impetus and other government initiatives, biotechnology sector is supposed to provide for better employment and economic opportunities along with environment sustainabilities. So as per this, we have 6 priority sectors. So for example, the bio-based chemicals and enzymes. So this basically will enhance the economy. Functional foods and smart proteins, again, economy. Precision biotherapeutics, this will be again for economy. So when I say economy, it will also be accompanied by increase in employment as well. Climate resilient agriculture basically will enhance the environment sustainability. Carbon capture and utilization again will increase the environmental sustainability, and and space bioresearch will again increase the economic output along with employment. So what you need to remember is that it has three components: economy, environment, and employment. And all these 6 pillars essentially seek to promote one or the other. If you take a look at the key achievements which we can cite as part of 1-year completion of BioE3 policy, we can say that it has led to Biomanufacturing Institute. For example, India's first Biomanufacturing Institute was inaugurated at Mohali, Punjab. Then it has led to research push as well, for more than 12 joint research calls, including for cell and gene therapy, climate smart agriculture, carbon capture, functional foods, etc., have been given an impetus. Then it has also led to center-state partnership across various domains, including the MOU or Memoranda of Understanding with Assam to set up a BioE3 cell, right? Fine. Now there is a concept called bioeconomy. Question can be on what do you mean by bioeconomy? So basically bioeconomy means use of renewable biological resources to produce food, energy, and industrial goods, which supports sustainability and economic growth. Key sectors here are biopharma and biomedical, bioagriculture, bioindustrial, bioresearch. So every time a bio agent is used for certain purposes, this can be categorized within bioeconomy. Then what is the status of bioeconomy in India? This has shown remarkable growth. You can see that it has increased or grown from merely 10 billion in 2014 to 165.7 billion in 2024. A huge jump, and we are working towards a target of 300 billion by 2030. If you look at the contribution to GDP, it is close to 4.25%, which is a great number, and it is by Indian Bioeconomy Report 2025. So from UPSC point of view, a lot of questions has come in the mains. I've just taken one specific question, which essentially can have certain implications from the article that we have discussed. So what are the research development achievements in applied biotechnology? How will these achievements help to uplift the poor sections of the society? So as usual, the question is always on the application side, and application for not just for the sake of technology or for the sake of research, just like in space research as well. It is for the broader growth and development of the society. So here we have to always think along that line, that how exactly this growth is going to help us become or improve our status of, or improve the status of the people. Next topic is Cabinet approves restructuring and extension of PM SVANidhi schemes. So PM SVANidhi essentially can be considered as part of social justice, GS paper 2, and part of GS3 inclusive growth. So first of all, let's understand the context here, why it was launched and what exactly the meaning of this. So when COVID-19 hit India, we know that it also was accompanied by lockdowns. And a lot of people, a lot of sections of the society suffered because of the lockdowns. And one of the section of the society that suffered because of the lockdown and because of the COVID-induced hardship were the street vendors. So street vendors suffered disproportionately because of the COVID pandemic, and therefore the government decided to do something for them when the economy started to open. So in light of this, in 2020, June 2020 to be precise, a scheme was launched which was called Street Vendors Self-Reliance Nidhi. right? So something like that, Self-Reliance Nidhi or SVANidhi. Swan will be in capital, then Nidhi, SVANidhi. So this was essentially a type of microcredit schemes where the street vendors who sell products like golgappas or pav bhajis or vada pav on the streets, they are provided certain credit or loan so that they can also set up their cart, and they can also sell quality products, including ensuring that it is also hygienic in nature. So this was essentially started off as a microcredit scheme, but it transformed into something that led to their overall development and their recognition as an important contributor of the Indian economy. So this basically transformed their status, and it also made them understand how to utilize the digital public infrastructure as well. So because of this success, the PM SVANidhi also got the Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Governance as well. And it recently completed the 5 years. And because it was so successful, it was further enhanced, the scope was enhanced till 2030. So there are two ways in which the extension can be looked. First is in terms of date. So there has been an extension of 5 years. Secondly, the change is that there are more services to be provided to the street vendors as part of PM SVANidhi scheme, which includes some of the credit link which is linked with the UPI, along with certain digital knowledge of digital skill transfer as well. So if you look at the scheme, so now the lending period, so what is the development now? That the lending period has now been extended until March 31st, 2030. So there has been an extension. Secondly, it is going to benefit 1.15 crore beneficiaries, including 50 lakh new beneficiaries. Then what are the new features which have been added? So first, the loan limits have been increased. So as I discussed earlier, it's a micro loan scheme. Essentially, at a very basic level, the scheme provides for micro or very small loans. And it is not provided all at once, it is provided at multiple levels. And depending on whether you have provided or you have given back the loan amount or the principals, you get further loans as well. So there is also concept of interest subvention as well. So for example, if you have taken a loan of 10,000 rupees from the government and you're supposed to pay that back in 1 year, and you have done that, so maybe you will not, if the interest is for say 5%, there will be some sort of interest subvention will be applied as well. So this basically promotes compliance as well. So the first tranche limit has increased from 10,000 to 15,000. The second tranche again has been increased from 20,000 to 25,000. And the third tranche is 50,000, which is unchanged. The second important development with respect to the expansion of the scheme is that now it is UPI linked RuPay credit card will also be done. Especially it is going to be applicable after the second loan repayment for quick emergency credit. Third, there's going to be a digital cashback up to rupees 1,600 on UPI retail wholesale transaction. And there is again an emphasis on capacity building in terms of financial literacy, entrepreneurship, digital and marketing skills. Second, hygiene and safety training with Food Safety and Security Authority of India, right? So basically, the scheme is now targeting not just the credit, but it is also to enhance the capacity of the street vendors. So if you look at some of the key provisions of PM SVANidhi, first is it is a central sector scheme. So central sector scheme, as you know, here it is entirely funded by the government of India, and the implementation is also done by the center as opposed to a centrally sponsored scheme. So in the centrally sponsored scheme, this fund or the devolution or the basic obligation is divided between center and state. right? And second thing, it is undertaken or underdone by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, so within this it lies. Thirdly, the implementation is generally with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, but with respect to loan, credit card facilitation through banks, financial institution, it is the Department of Financial Services which will come into picture. Objective, as we discussed earlier, it is to provide working capital without any collateral. That is very important, without any collateral. Promote financial inclusion, digital payments, and identity recognition to street vendors by the various ULBs or urban local bodies will be recognizing these street vendors, and they get basic certificate, and on that certificate they can further apply to various loans, etc. The targeted beneficiaries are the street vendors, hawkers, vending in urban areas as on before March 24, 2020. Right? So now we'll go to the quick updates. And within quick updates, we have Gangotri Glacier as the first news. So all of us know that climate change is playing a havoc on the, or it is leading to an amplification of melting of glacier. So this is also being seen with respect to Gangotri Glacier as well, which according to several news has lost 10% of its snow in the 4 decades. So this is a major development because it directly links climate change with melting of glacier. So this study confirms this trend. And if you look at the basic details of Gangotri Glacier, so it is a 30-kilometer long glacier in the Uttarakashi district of Uttarakhand, and it feeds Bhagirathi River, one of the primary head streams of the Ganges River. As it flows down, the Bhagirathi merges with Alaknanda at Devprayag to form Ganga. And it is also home to Gangotri National Park. If you look at the key fauna, it is snow leopard, Himalayan blue sheep, bharal or Himalayan monal, the state bird of Uttarakhand. The second important news here is hierarchical reasoning model. So there's an AI company in Singapore called Sapient AI. And they have discovered a new AI model which is working very much similar to human brain, and they're now calling it as a hierarchical reasoning model, HRM. So the existing models of AI that are working are essentially large language modules, and they have certain limitations because they work through chain of thought reasoning. Now, what is chain of thought reasoning? It essentially means that a large and complex problem is broken down into its various simpler components, and then it tries to establish the interconnection through using various data that they have, and on that basis they generate their responses. But here the human reasoning model, it works on human brain, which is hierarchical and multi-time scale processing. It mimics how different brain regions integrate information across duration. So if how we look at HRM works, or the hierarchical reasoning model works, it executes sequential tasks in a single forward pass without explicit supervision of the immediate or intermediate process. So it's essentially, it does a bulk of work without delegating it to simpler tasks. And it has 2 modules. First module is high-level module, which is slow, abstract planning. So a new problem, a new complex problem, which has not doesn't have any particular solution, can be rendered or can be solved by a high-level module. And a day-to-day task or things which have been done before, which does not require that much abstraction, can be solved by low-level module, which is for fast, detailed computation. Next, we'll move on to this news of Excise Bright Star. So we talked about how Indian Armed Forces, or we are now going towards jointness of command and theaterization, or we have 3 now new doctrines as well. Now this exercise essentially involves the Bright Star, essentially here the Indian Armed Forces and Headquarters Integrated Defense Staff, will participate in the multilateral exercise Bright Star 2025. So multilateral exercise Bright Star essentially figures, it has two major components or two major countries, Egypt and US. In the 1980s, they started with this. And this was basically prompted after the Cape David Summit, David Accord, which basically established the diplomatic relation of Israel and Egypt, right? So essentially, it is a multilateral exercise hosted by Egypt in conjunction with the US since 1980. And Indian participation here, it basically signifies that India is committed to regional peace, India is committed to stability of the West Asian region, and India is committed to the security, because a lot of stake is there when it comes to Middle East from Indian perspective, including the diaspora, including the energy security, right? So therefore, India is also invested in this, and moreover, it will also help in ensuring that India achieves jointness in operations, and it will also ensure that there is some sort of synergy with other military forces as well. Next is purchasing power parity. Now, why this term was in news? Because there was a recent study by Ernst & Young. So Ernst & Young is a consultancy firm, and it has published a report. And according to that report, India is projected to emerge as the world's second largest economy after China, surpassing US as well, US, Germany, etc., in purchasing power parity by 2038. And this basically will come because of strong demographics. If you look at the median age of India, it is close to 28.5 in 2025. So India has a strong demographic. In various parts of the country, the population is on the higher side. And in India, we have a very young population with the average age as 28.5. And the good thing about young population is that they can be utilized as workforce, and they will also need a huge, or there will be a huge demand as well. So this is going to increase the demand. And we know that in the concept of GDP, we have a concept of a demand as well, consumption. So if the young population will also consume a lot, so the more consumption will also lead to higher demand, thereby increasing the GDP. Then you have robust savings. So savings can be converted to investment and a sustainable fiscal path, which means that the macroeconomy will be on the stabler path by keeping the inflation on check. If you look at what exactly is the concept of purchasing power parity, it basically means that we are comparing the economic productivity and living standards across country. For example, if I'm staying in Mumbai, maybe my rent is rupees 25,000. Okay? So those who are from Mumbai, they can, or from anywhere, just tell me what rent do you pay? Okay. So maybe if you are earning, say, 1 lakh rupees in Mumbai, and maybe you are from Bhopal, and you are earning just 60,000 rupees. This is your earning, and this is your cost of living, including your rent, including your monthly expenditure, etc. So maybe in Mumbai, you'll spend around 60,000 rupees as a cost of living, including rent plus monthly expenditure. But in Bhopal, this is only, say, 20K. So effectively, in Mumbai, you are getting close to 40,000, and in Bhopal also you are getting close to 40,000 only, right? So even though on the face of it, you are earning more in Mumbai, but your cost of living is also very high. Similarly, in Bhopal, even though the earning is less, but the cost of living is less, so the net earning is also on the similar lines. So this basically shows that in different countries and in different cities, different, because of different prices, your living expenditure or your living status conditions will be different, right? So this is basically purchasing power parity, where it uses a basket of goods to compare currency values. For example, what is the cost of a McDonald's burger in India versus New York? So if, for example, if it is at $2 in India or in US, and it is rupees 80 in India, so it means that $1 essentially is for rupees 40. But if you look at the actual rate, it is close to 85 now, right? But this essentially means that we are now spending more money in US as compared to India, right? So basically PPP here is, it uses a basket of goods to compare the currency values, okay? So in terms of PPP, in terms of living standard, India is set to become second largest country by PPP by 2038. Next, a very important development, 3I Atlas. So again, there is a difference in nomenclature. So as per NASA, 3I Atlas is a comet discovered in 2025 by ATLAS, which is Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System Survey telescope situated in Rio Hurtado in Chile. That is what the NASA says. But we also have a Harvard astrophysics who says that this massive interstellar object could be an alien aircraft. Okay, so whether it is a comet or whether it is an alien aircraft, that is a matter of debate, which is yet to be played out. So we need to look into this space more to understand what exactly is going on. So here, what is important from the exam is understanding what is a comet, what is a meteorite, and what is an asteroid. So in the comment, tell me how comet is different from a meteorite. Next, if you look at 3I Atlas, it is the third known object from outside our solar system to be discovered. The first was 1L in 2017, and second was 2I Borisov in 2019. It is categorized as interstellar because of the hyperbolic shape of its orbital path, right? So this is the third known object from outside our solar system, and it is very massive in nature, and it also follows a different orbital path, which it is hyperbolic instead of the orbital path. Next, Unified District Information System for Education Plus, which is UDISE Plus. And what exactly is the development here? The development is that the Unique Identification Authority of India, which basically manages Aadhaar system, and the Ministry of Education, they have collaborated to facilitate pending mandatory biometric update in Aadhaar on this application, UDISE Plus application. Now, what exactly is UDISE Plus in portal or application? So this is important because this is the 5-year of National Education Policy 2020. So any major development with respect to school education or higher education becomes important from exam perspective. Now here, this UDISE Plus is an educational management information system which works within the Department of School Education and Literacy under Ministry of Education. The objective is to collect credible, comparable nationwide data via standardized online format. Basically, it is for benchmarking purpose and comparing purpose, that what exactly is the status of attendance of students, teachers, and to what extent the access is translating into quality. Then the function, what are the functions? Central platform for schools to record and submit. So all these things will be there. Profile in terms of infrastructure and facilities. So whether they have separate washroom for girl children or not, etc., etc. Then students, what is the enrollment rate? And then the breakup of the enrollment. So within whether the vulnerable sections are part of the enrollment or not. So basically, this is to ensure inclusion. Then it is also for ensuring that teachers are coming to the class and they are teaching as per the pedagogy provided by the NEP. So they also ensures accountability. Right? So this is the development with respect to this news. Next is glanders. There have been a lot of development with respect to animals recently. And you may have heard about this development of this disease as well, which the Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying, DHD, has issued revised National Action Plan on glanders. In terms of the revised action plan, they have further explained how it is to be monitored, how it is to be surveilled, and how the communication has to be done in a standardized manner. So now let's look into what exactly is glanders. So glanders essentially is an infectious disease that mainly affects equine, which include horses, donkeys, and mules. It is notifiable under Prevention and Control of Infectious and Contagious Disease in Animals, which is PCI CDA Act 2009. It is caused by a bacterium, and it can be transmitted to humans and to other animals as well. So therefore, we need to integrate the concept of One Health. Next, it is a life-threatening zoonosis and no vaccine exists as of now, but we can prevent the transmission through ensuring that the infection does not spread to a large place, right? Then the next news is about Article 9.1 of Paris Agreement. Now, Paris Agreement is very important because many a time UPSC asks direct questions with respect to the Conference of Parties and the major development which happened during then. And what exactly is the context here is that India and developing countries, they are pushing to bring Article 9.1 back at the center of negotiations, which is going to happen at COP, or Conference of Parties, at Brazil, right? So Conference of Party essentially is called as COP in the climate negotiation deals. So basically they are within, you can say that it is part of, they are part of climate change negotiations. Or specifically they are part of UNFCCC. UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it's a global body, and those members which are part of UNFCCC are called as Conference of Parties, or COP. Every year there is a meeting in certain country, and that particular number is associated with the meeting. For example, Paris Summit was also a COP. Now you tell me, what was the COP with respect to the Paris Summit or Paris Agreement? COP dash. Okay. Next, what is Article 9.1? So it is a very essential article which basically talk about the perspective of the global south. And what exactly it is? It seeks that the developed country must provide financial resources to support developing countries in mitigation and adaptation. So basically this is at the heart of the climate change negotiation. In terms of mitigation and adaptation, the countries which have earlier used resources to fund its development, they became developed countries at the expense of the developing countries. So they must provide for the financial resources so that the developing countries can plan their mitigation, which means that they can control or they can ensure some sort of change in terms of climate change or climate mitigation, or and when it comes to adaptation, essentially means that how they are going to adapt to the climate change in terms of disaster resilience and other aspects. Mitigation basically means construction of certain infrastructure that would help overcome the problems of the climate change, right? Now the basis is rooted. What is the basis for Article 9.1? This is in CBDR, which is common but differentiated responsibilities. This was essentially part of Kyoto Protocol, where it was decided that all the countries, irrespective of whether they are a developed country or a developing countries, will face consequences because of climate change. So there is responsibility for everyone to contribute in reducing the ill effect of climate change. But the responsibility cannot be uniform all across the world. It has to be differentiated in nature on the basis of their financial resources. So the developed country should have higher burden of taking the responsibilities, and the developing country should have lesser responsibilities. So there is common but differentiated responsibilities and historical responsibilities because of acts like colonialism and exploitation and industrialization, which the global north were able to do much faster than the global south. Next is topic is on International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Why it was in news? Because the inspectors from the IAEA have started to begin work at the key nuclear sites of Iran. So this is important because in the aftermath of the Israel-Iran war, Iran had suspended cooperation with the international IAEA following a 12-day war, right? So basically, the contention that Iran had was that Israel was targeting its nuclear facilities, therefore it would not cooperate with the IAEA. Now they have suspended this objection, and now the IAEA has started beginning work. Now what exactly are they doing in Iran? So for this we need to understand what exactly is the work of IAEA. So IAEA essentially was created in 1957 and it essentially sees that the nuclear energy is used for peaceful purpose. So we must understand that nuclear energy is a dual energy, or has a dual role or dual purpose. It has a defense role and it has peaceful purpose in terms of energy generation, etc. So IAEA seeks to ensure that only the countries which are part of the non-nuclear proliferation treaty are the ones which are using for defense purposes, but those which are outside the NPT are not using the nuclear energy for defense purposes. And Iran has often reiterated that it is not using nuclear energy for any defense role. Therefore, IAEA is there in Iran to verify the claims made by Iran. So what exactly it does? It functions for the safe, secure, and peaceful use of nuclear science and technology. It contributes to international peace and security and the sustainable development goals. It is headquartered at Vienna, Austria, and it was also awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. So this is all about the news today for 28th August. Make sure that you also attempt some of the questions that will be popping up on your screen. And once you are done with that, go through the solutions provided as well. And again, as I reiterated earlier, take a look at the questions that have come in this year's mains and see to what extent you are able to solve those questions from your understanding of the current affairs. With that, I hope this was a useful session for you. All the best and good night.